very important shit. There's stuff that I feel that I need to write or I want to write, but I'm so far from pinning it down, from making a list of absolutely every part of it that needs to be covered. It's a lot of work, and I can't just do it a little bit of it at a time. I've got to do the whole lot when I do it. But this you might call the first of perhaps many items of rough material, raw material, that will be included in that. But on its own, right now, I just want to go into this. From Knowing How to Know by Idris Shah. If a man is in pain or is in a fantasy world, you do not love him nor do you hate him for that. You do not take very great notice or pay unbalanced attention to what a certain kind of sick person is saying or doing, because he is not capable of understanding you. Therefore, you are in a false position if you react emotionally or even intellectually to his behavior. It is very important to remember that. Remain calm above all. Therefore, you will see that charity and kindness towards other people is not a virtue. It is a necessity of the situation. It comes from a true diagnosis of the reality and not directly from a high spiritual source at all. Charity and kindness is not a high quality, it is a realistic quality and a necessary quality. It stems from duty, sympathy, and measure. I invite your attention to the historical situation in which a teacher is dealing with a primitive people who have no sense of the situation and no diagnostic capacities. The teacher must appeal to them to be charitable and to try to be objective. He must initially appeal to them emotionally. He may represent charity as a virtue to them because they do not understand anything else. But this is a primitive stage before the development of understanding. You do not need to be emotionally charitable towards a diseased person, a sick person, if you are a doctor. If you can see he is ill, you don't need to say, "It is for the sake of God that I am being kind to him." It is for the sake of man that you are being kind to him. It is for the sake of necessity that you are being kind to him. If a man is suffering from pain and he attacks you because he has got this terrible pain, you do not say, "I will not hit back because I'm a religious man." You say, "I am a doctor. I know what's wrong with him. My emotions are not involved, and I must, from duty, try to help him." You have here gone one stage beyond the primitive. And this is a very important argument because most of the people in this world are still being taught as if they were primitive people. They are being told, be charitable, be understanding, it is divine. They are thus being treated as if they were primitive savages, regressed even to an earlier stage than they were before. But they're not so primitive anymore. Their supposed mentors are in fact treating them with something like contempt. As a result, they are easily confused because they are really capable of understanding this sleep, this narcoleptic malaise. They should be told about it on that level. This is the shortcoming of certain forms of allegedly spiritual instruction, which continue to treat people as if they were primitive tribalists living 1, 2, or more thousand years ago. And it is because the audience does not correspond in its cultural level with those who are teaching it that very little progress can be made. As an example, I will tell you quite plainly that you will find in certain forms of supposedly spiritual teachings, the audience are given promises and treated to threats. They are told, if you do this, it will be good for you. If you do that, it will be bad for you. And they are alternatively frightened and promised wonderful things. Now, this is the most primitive way of dealing with human beings, and it can indeed be necessary with a primitive community. It is not necessary for all members of all the communities of today. This is not to say that there is not a place for threat or promise, but only a place, and a specific one at that. It is for this reason, or that reason, that a very famous woman, Rabia, one of the saints of our tradition, has left us a very beautiful prayer. She said, "Oh Lordy Lord," well, she said it in her language, I'll say it in mine. "Oh Lordy Lord, if I worship you from fear of hell, then put me in hell. And if I worship you from desire for paradise, exclude me from paradise." This is what prayer means, that she is not doing something to please or displease God. She is doing it for another reason, because she understands something. This is a very important principle, and it brings us together, brings us to a higher level than the generally familiar primitive version of religion. So you will see that If we are dealing with a primitive individual community, we may well use threat and promise. But where we are dealing with a more advanced community, if we use these methods of fear and hope too strongly, we will actually regress the person to a more primitive condition, even if he or she has already passed that stage. We will not only be doing such a person no good, we will be doing damage to a person who is now trained to respond mainly to fear and hope. This fact has been known, of course, for many thousands of years, and has been taught for as long a period of time. But there have always been large populations of the world which have been, at some time, ignorant of it. Fortunately, at this time, with the development of sociological and psychological knowledge and experimentation, there is a great deal of material published not by us, but by experts all over the world, which verifies and proves this point. And there is now no need to rely on our unsupported word for this information. We are able to direct your attention to the scientific work which has been done in this field. This is a very great advantage which we have, which we would not have had even 100 years ago, because the research material was not then available. Therefore, we must be thankful and grateful to the scientists who have placed these instruments in our hands. And we should not imagine that there is some conflict between us and the scientific method and scientific work. We should also note in passing, this is the last bit, I'm going to stop, so this is in passing, that such has been the power of the scientific revelations in the late 20th century on this subject that even the traditionalistic religious people must take account of it, must take notice of this, and they must adjust their teaching in response to this scientific knowledge. Otherwise, their form of training will die out.